Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. On today's video, I'm going to be smoking up a low and slow Texas style brisket, and I'm going to be making up a delicious Tex-Mex brisket platter. All right, let's get started on this bad boy brisket right here. This is a 16-pound Wagyu brisket from Midland Meat Company. Now, they did a really nice job of trimming up this brisket, but it's a little bit thin on the flat right here, and I do have some fat on the back side of this brisket that I do want to trim up, and also some of this fat that you see on the top of the point right here. So I'm just going to get my Dell Strong knife and take some of this fat off the flat first. One thing I like to do is stick my hand on the bottom of that brisket. That really raises the center of the brisket, allowing you to trim up some of that fat. Just like that. All right, so I've got the flat pretty much trimmed up as much as I want. Now I am going to be removing some of this decal right here, just to lay it flat a little bit more than it already is. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, this point is a little bit thin right here, and that's just gonna burn up on me, so I'm just gonna trim that off and round it off at the same time. I'm also gonna round off this corner right here. A little bit more right here. All right, that looks much better right there. No sharp corners and no thin spots. So this is all I'm going to do to the flat. Let's take a look at our fat cap. Yeah, I do want to trim this up just a little bit. This heavy fat pocket right here. I'm looking for about 1/4 of an inch of fat on this fat cap. All right, so on this side, I do have a little bit of fat right here. I'm just gonna trim some of this off. It's not any good. All right, that looks good right there. I'm just gonna wash up my hands. I'll bring you guys back. We're gonna season this bad boy. All right, let's season up our brisket. I'm gonna be using mustard as a binder. Now I'm gonna be smoking this in my Yoder Frontiersman with the fat cap up. So I like to season the flat first. So the reason I like to use mustard as a binder is because it really grabs a hold of that rub and it does not let it go throughout the entire cooking process. All right, so the first rub that I'm using is this garlic jalapeno seasonal from Victory Lane Barbecue. This is just a base layer, just a very light coating, as you can see. So the next rub that I'm using is my homemade SPG. Now this is 90% salt and pepper, which is what Texas briskets are, but it also has a little bit of paprika and some granulated garlic. So I'm just gonna add a good layer of this rub. And this is a really big piece of meat, so don't be shy in your rub. If you guys want to know the recipe to my rub, it will be down below inside the description box. Check it out. Get your edges. Okay, pat that down. Now let's season up that fat cap. This rub is gonna give us a really nice Texas bark on our brisket. So I've got my brisket all seasoned up. Now this is gonna sit inside my fridge overnight, but I will be taking it out about an hour and a half before I pop it in the smoker. Let it come up to room temperature. We'll see you guys in a bit. Stay tuned. All right, so it's the very next morning and I do have a little bit of charcoal laid in the middle of my firebox. I'm gonna be using my grill gun to get my charcoal going. Love this grill gun. Just turn on the gas a little bit, hit the trigger, just like that, let it go. So that took maybe 1 minute. Now I normally start my firebox with 2 splits of wood, but because I'm gonna maintain a temperature between 225 and 250, again low and slow, I'm starting off with 1 split of wood. Now this is gonna take about 45 minutes to get my smoker up to temperature. I'll bring you guys back at that point. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been about 45 minutes and my smoker is up to 225 degrees on the top gauge. I'm gonna be placing my brisket on the top shelf of my Yodel Frontiersman. Look at this gorgeous looking brisket right here. I'm just gonna pop it right in the middle of the rack, since I'm only smoking 1 brisket today. Leave it right there. Again, I'm smoking with a fat cap up at 225 degrees. We'll check back when I start spritzing, which is gonna be about 2.5 hours. Stay tuned. All right, so the total cook time has been 5 hours. I did come back at the 2.5 hour mark, and that bark still wasn't set, so I didn't do anything to it. And it looks like that bark is set now. Oh yes. Got a really nice color as well. So I'm gonna spritz for the very first time. Again, 5 hours at 225 degrees. Really low and slow, and look at that bark. That is an absolutely gorgeous bark. Something you don't always get when you go hot and fast. Okay, I'm still not ready to wrap. I'm gonna give it about another hour and a half and continue to build that Texas bark that we like out here in Texas. So I'm gonna get an internal temperature. Let's see where we're at. 171, 172 on the point, and that flat is at 169 as well. So I'm not gonna wrap yet. Probably gonna take it to about 178 degrees before I even wrap. I wanna get a really nice bark on this brisket. We'll see you guys in about an hour and a half. Stay tuned. All right, so I had already wrapped up my brisket, didn't realize my microphones weren't on, so I just spritzed it with apple cider vinegar and water, and the internal temperature is 174 degrees. So I am smoking this brisket with the fat cap up, and that's exactly how I want to place it back inside my smoker. So I'm gonna watch it. So my fat cap is down right there. Pull your paper nice and tight. Fat cap is up right there. Again, pull that paper really nice and tight. Then your excess butcher paper, we're gonna tuck on the bottom of that brisket. Okay, just lift the brisket and tuck the excess butcher paper on the bottom. So I'm gonna pop this back inside my smoker. I'm not gonna pull it until it probes really nice and tender, almost like butter. I'll let you guys know exactly what that temperature is once I pull it off. Stay tuned. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we are gonna be making a Tex-Mex platter, and you can't have a Tex-Mex platter without some homemade flour tortillas. Now I do have a video out there on how I made these tortillas. The only difference between this video and the other one is that I'm using some Wagyu beef tallow for these tortillas. So I'm just kneading the dough. Then I'm gonna make them into small dough balls. I'll bring you guys back as soon as I roll them out. All right, so my dough balls have been resting for 15 minutes. I'm gonna show you the process of what I do to roll these out. So just smash them down a little bit, almost the size of an Oreo cookie. Lay some flour down. Just like that. Put some flour on your rolling pin as well. Get your dough ball and roll it around the flour. Now what you want to do is turn it into a football shape. Just like that. Flip it and go in the opposite direction. You want to keep doing this until you end up with a nice, round, flat tortilla. Now you don't want these tortillas really thick. You want them nice and thin. There we go, just like that, nice and thin. I've got my Heston Q induction burner over here. I'm gonna put our flour tortilla in there. I do have my induction burner on a medium high, so this is pretty hot. And what you want to see is these bubbles that you see forming on the surface. At that point, it's time to flip your tortilla. So this one is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off. There we go. Beautiful homemade flour tortilla. I'm gonna get the rest of these done, then I'm gonna show you my next dish. All right, so I'm making my next side. I'm gonna be making some street corn. I've got 2 quarts of boiling water and I got 1 stick of butter in there. Now the corn that I'm using is not something that's used here in the US. This is more of a Mexican style corn. This corn is called cacahuesquince corn, okay? So it's got a lot more flavor than your traditional corn on the cob. So I'm gonna pour my corn into the boiling water. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of salt. Give it a good mix. Oh, this is gonna be so good. Can't wait to show you the finished product. All right, so this corn is gonna boil for 2.5 hours until this corn is nice and tender. I'll bring you guys back as I prepare my next side dish. Stay tuned. I'm gonna add a little bit of Wagyu fat to this cast iron pan. I do have my Heston Q induction burner running at halfway. So just gonna add some onions. We're gonna be making what we call a queso fundido, which is fantastic, cheesy goodness with chorizo, some onions, some jalapenos, and some green chilies as well. So I'm gonna add my jalapenos in there. I used half of an onion and 2 jalapeno peppers. All right, I'm just gonna saute these till the onions get nice and translucent. All right, so I'm adding 6 ounces of chorizo. Gonna let that cook up for a little bit. All right, so the chorizo, onions, and jalapenos have been cooking for about 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna add 1.5 pounds of asadero cheese. You just stir everything together and let that cheese start to melt down. All right, so while the cheese is cooking, I do have some green chili here, and this is what I do to shred it. Just grab a fork and run it across your green chili. It's gonna give you some really nice strips that we're gonna be putting in our queso fundido. I'll do one more for you guys. There we go. I'll bring you guys back when the cheese is ready. All right, the queso fundido is ready. Now I did have my molcajete in the oven, so it's really hot, and that's important in order to keep your cheese nice and melted. So I'm just gonna pick up a big spoonful of this cheesy goodness with chorizo, the jalapenos, the onions. Oh yes, this is gonna be good. Look at that. Just put it in there. Again, that's really hot. Grab a little bit more. You can hear it sizzling as it hits that. Kind of see it bubbling on the edges there. That's telling you it's really hot. So I like to place my green chili on the outside, just in case your guests don't like the queso fundido too hot, they can just grab it from the molcajete here, or if they want it extra hot, they can grab some of the hot chilies. All right, so I'm just gonna move this aside. All right, so here's our corn. I'm gonna add a little bit of tahini on each one. And I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of lime. Just like that, just a little bit. I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese. Again, this is the Mexican street corn, the authentic Mexican street corn. I'm gonna add some Valentina hot sauce. Some Mexican crema. Gonna add some cotija cheese on top of that. And a little bit more of the tahini. That is perfect. All right, let me go grab the brisket. We'll slice into it. All right, let's see how we did on our brisket. Again, the total cook time was 11.5 hours, between 225 and 250 the entire cook. Now when I pulled it, I did flip the brisket so the fat cap is on the bottom. That way some of that au jus hits the fat cap. So let's unwrap this. Oh yes, this brisket is money. Look at it jiggle. Ooh, baby, look at that. Jiggle, jiggle. All right, so before I cut into the brisket, I do like to get some burnt ends out of my briskets, and I usually trim it so I have this edge right here. I love to trim that off. Get some really nice burnt ends. Oh my goodness, look at that. Really nice and tender. These burnt ends are gonna be delicious. All right, so I'm just gonna set these aside. All right, so let's slice into our brisket and see how we did here. Just gonna take this edge off. Save that piece for me later. Oh man, look at this. Really nice smoke ring. That fat rendered nicely. It's got a yellow tint to it. Slicing extremely nice. Boy, this brisket is really nice and juicy. Let me grab a slice so you guys can see this. Look at that. Is that money or what? Look at that smoke ring. Really beautiful color and that fat rendered nicely. All right, let's see how we did on that point. Oh man, extremely tender. Cut it in half. Look at that bad boy right there. Really nice and juicy. I don't even have to squeeze it. The fat is just dripping out of there. Look at that. All right, so I'm gonna slice up the rest of this brisket, and I'll bring you guys back as soon as I assemble that platter. Stay tuned. All right, let's put our Tex-Mex brisket platter together. I'm just gonna grab some of my brisket slices right here. I'm gonna fan them out. I'm also gonna add some of the point pieces. Some of our delicious burnt ends right here on the front. Oh man, look at that. That looks absolutely delicious. You know, every brisket platter has to have some onions. So got some onions right here. Got some chopped up jalapenos as well. Got our Mexican street corn. Make a little bit of room for our queso fundido. Looks like it'll fit right there. Got some of my homemade beef tallow flour tortillas. Look at that, guys. So here's my Tex-Mex brisket platter. Let's give it a taste. All right, I'm gonna make myself a brisket taco. Nice warm tortillas. Gonna grab a brisket slice. Look at that. Check that bad boy out right there. Gonna add some of this queso fundido. Nice melted hot cheese. Just on my taco like this. Gonna add a couple of onions. Maybe a couple slices of jalapenos in here. Look at that. Let's give it a taste. All right, let's give this taco a try and see how we did. One thing I forgot was to add some of this long green chili, this hot long green chili. So just gonna add a couple of strips, just like that. Man, my mouth is watering. There we go. All right, so I gotta tell you, that brisket has an amazing smoky flavor, really nice and tender. Some of that queso fundido in there takes it over the top. Now I'm just gonna try some of these burnt ends. Look at this nugget of goodness right here. That is unbelievably delicious. Now let's give the street corn a try. Been waiting for this all day. Just gonna grab a nice spoonful. There we go. This is delicious. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If this is your first time here, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. See ya.